So I do these videos about stuff that's really relevant for me at any specific point in time. And so for the past 3 to 4 years, the main thing I've been doing is setting up a new business, hiring a CEO for that business, and then helping that CEO to get an executive team so that they can scale the company and move it forwards. And so effectively, kind of like my destiny is to go to the office, listen to people talk about the problems that we have, and then create videos about how I go to the office and listen to people talk about problems we have. Kind of strange. Okay, but so in this video, I will focus on how I hire CEOs and how we build high performance teams. And this video will tie into another video I'll be doing about running multiple companies at the same time. But the thing I wanted to start talking about is how we transitioned from having one company, one executive team, and then having multiple businesses across different products, different markets, different business models in general. So for the context, in 2020, me and my business partner, we stepped out from the first business we set up. It was called Green Finance, Avofin. I had mentioned it many times before in terms of statistics. So we had built it out to 100 million plus in revenue, profitable, over 500 people employed across many different countries, and we sold it successfully. And so we had this one business where we were very focused on building it out, have this one team. We were experimenting with different corporate governance formats, how to make sure that we have a good matrix structure in place between functions and locations. But it was a focus on one team and one business at that time. With the sale and stepping down from the management, what changed was I was no longer an executive and I was no longer a CEO. And that meant a lot less traveling, first of all, and especially when COVID hit, it kind of happened at the same time as I stepped down from that first company. And really the pace and the speed of life reduced significantly, and it allowed me to kind of look at my own past as if I was looking at somebody else and as if I had stepped out from a fast moving train. And so one of the key takeaways I felt emotionally was that I no longer wanted to go into the day-to-day operations, and that was a very luxurious position to have, and I'm grateful that I have this opportunity to choose what I want to do, because you have to really work hard to get to that position. And it also didn't happen instantly. It kind of happened gradually, because at first, just by momentum and habit, once I sold the first business, I thought that I'm just gonna start another company and there will be one thing and this one idea, and I will spend all my resources on it. And as I experimented with a few ideas in real estate, in pre-IPO, investing, brokerage, financial services, and I started having these calls with VCs to kind of get feedback on some of those ideas, to test out if we could get funding for some of those businesses, I felt like I'm going kind of like 10 years back in my career. I had these young associate VCs asking me basic questions about, unit economics and things like that. And I felt as if there is no progress, and even more so that I'm going back significantly in terms of my development. And so I really felt like shooting myself in the leg if I would have to continue doing that. And so therefore I decided that, okay, a way forward is, if I want to develop these ideas, but do it at the next level for me, is I have to hire CEOs and they're gonna do the day-to-day. And so that meant a very different role for me. Instead of jumping into the operations, I had to be able to hire CEOs and kind of step out of their way to make sure that they can scale the business in a way that they know how. And so for the background, just to give you some ideas. So currently, me and my business partner, Davis, we have 7 different companies with CEOs running each of those businesses across fintech, consumer lending, in my case also real estate, and crowdfunding and technology. So running across like 4 different segments that are more or less related. And each of those companies are in different phases. Some are pure startups. They have started just recently with 1 or 2 or 3 people. Some of them are bigger organizations with more than 400 or 500 employees. So how do I technically find these different CEOs? There are a couple of ways. So number one, and that's a classic, a standard, hire an HR firm that is focused on executives, high-level people. They know CEOs, they know very good people. And so you have to pay this company a lot, but it makes sense because they find very qualified leads that you can already speak with, and those candidates are interested in potentially working for you. Second channel, which I use most of the times, is my own business network. So people that I've met across, 15 years, more than 15 years in business. They are business partners, friends coming from business activities, colleagues, employees, investors, and so on and so forth. So in my case, given the experience I have across different countries over a long period of time, I have a relatively big network. So any idea that I want to validate or speak about, I will most likely have somebody that I can reach out to, and at least that somebody will point me to someone else that can give me relevant feedback or can give me some candidates. So that's the second thing. And of course, that's not something that everybody has. This is something you have to earn. The third thing, which I have kind of realized just from the practice and from doing stuff, is when I have an idea and I'm starting to research it, to validate, to test out, to offer this idea to maybe some friends and family investors, I get to meet new people. Sometimes those people are from companies that are successful, executives from those companies that are successful in that specific space I'm researching. And so I start talking to those people, and then it ends up as a kind of good, interesting conversation. And sometimes those people are open and willing to join me and to become the CEO to run this business. Not always it works out, but I've concluded that that's a very good, logical, intuitive way of how to get to great CEO candidates. All right, so the next question is, how do I know it's the right person? How do I know that relationship is going to work out? Because that's a very significant relationship. You're going to partner with somebody that has also other options. Nobody's desperate in this situation, and both sides need to take some risks. I need to take risks to invest money, to build out the relationship with that person. That CEO needs to drop other things they're doing. So there's significant cost involved in kind of starting a new direction. And the answer is you never fucking know. Of course, you never know it's going to work out or not, which makes it kind of romantic, but it makes it high risk. Nevertheless, there is something very useful that I've found, which is a way to reduce this risk of the relationship not working out. And that something is kind of finding a way to take small steps at first before making this big decision of going with that specific person and building out the business together. And so how does it work? Or what do I mean by that? Let's say I have an idea that I want to research and I'm not sure if it's a good business to start. And then I find somebody that is professional, experienced in this specific space, and that somebody is interested in talking to me and kind of bouncing ideas back and forth and developing this business case. That period can take a month, 2 months, or several months. And that is a very good way to create a relationship with that person. And then you can find out the work ethic, the cultural fit, the personal relationship chemistry with that person. And that's sufficient, and that's a much better substitute than any formal interview. And so this is kind of a tool that I'm trying to use to become fully comfortable that I should go with this CEO and that we should build out this business together. And then the topic of compensation, that's number 3. How do I think about compensating these CEOs? And the answer is there's no one cookie cutter kind of approach that fits every single situation. But in principle, I would say that me and Davis have developed some kind of a set of rules that generally work across our different CEOs and different companies. And that set of rules is number 1, shares for the CEO. And so we want to have a situation where the CEO drives the business forward. They're not asking for questions and thinking, okay, what do I do next? They are motivated, capable, and loyal and interested in building out the business. And as a precondition to that, they need to be fully financially motivated to dedicate their life and working on this business 24/7. And the best way to make sure that that's the case is, of course, if they have an equity upside in the business. Now, the equity upside doesn't necessarily mean that you give shares to that person. It can be achieved in different formats. So one of the things we also have figured out is giving actual shares to employees can be sometimes difficult from an administrative perspective. Why? Because if you actually give shares, the same common shares that I would hold, then it requires some signatures. It makes it a bit difficult with corporate governance and so on and so forth. And so the best way to solve that is 2 things. One is either we issue Class B shares, let's put it that way, that don't have the same corporate governance, board, veto, writing powers that I would have as a shareholder of the business. That's one option. And the second option is a more commonly used approach, which is profit share. So the CEO works and performs very well. There's a profitability or there's a sale of the business, and the CEO makes a share of those proceeds. In that scenario, it's simple. It's straightforward, and that's just another way to achieve the same target without actually giving technically the shares. But like I said, it depends on the situation. And the third component, of course, is the fixed salary. In my view, it makes sense to assign a fixed salary amount which is smaller than what that person would normally make if they would work for, a big corporation. Why? Because that just aligns the interest. It tells me that that person is interested and motivated to work for performance, and it makes sense for both sides. And then the last piece that I would mention in terms of finding the CEO and how it works from our experience is the comfort familiarity factor, I would call it. Because in our case, if I think about it, most of the CEOs we have across the different companies, they are Latvians, and not all of them, but most of them sit in our offices right here. And you could think that that's maybe like a limiting approach, and maybe it shows something that I'm not ready to reach out to people across different countries, hire people from, Southeast Asia or America or whatever. I would say not necessarily, because actually the first CEO that runs our first company, Green Finance Avafin, is Austrian. Patrick is doing an insane job in building out that company. So we have in the past looked at people from across different locations, different markets, and it was almost as if it was a mandatory requirement to make sure we hire people from other countries, because we had the perception that in Latvia you don't necessarily have world-class talent. And that has significantly changed, because simply, we have looked at the facts and we have seen that people just from our network and from this country, they are as capable as anybody else from different countries. That's one. And second, our industry is very developed, specifically in the Baltics, fintech platforms, online lending, and people from this industry are very experienced. They have like 10 plus years of knowledge of how to run these businesses and scale them. And that's something not necessarily we can find so easily in other places where this industry is not that developed. So in summary, I want to double click and zoom in this topic of executive headhunting and finding good CEOs. And I'll do that by having a conversation with, if not the leading, then one of the leading executive headhunting firms, and the partner of that firm. I'll have a separate conversation, a separate interview with that person, and that will follow up in another video. But for now, please like or dislike, subscribe, and comment on this video. I very much appreciate your attention, and I'll see you next time.